the whole movie was fueled by cocaine. Not just the Ghost Shop, not just us, but everybody was. Are you kidding me? All those movies, everybody was doing cocaine.
Welcome the Rubberhead himself, here to tell stories of sex, drugs, and special effects as we bring you the Chronicles of Steve Johnson.
Watch this.
Ladies and gentlemen, days and dems, this week we bring you an absolute legend in the world of special effects. This week's guest is a man who has spent his career proving that if something goes bump in the night, he probably built it. He's worked on a few movies you may have heard of, like Ghostbusters, Species, The Abyss, Spider-Man 2, so many more. His work is so good it's made audiences laugh, cry, and occasionally spill their popcorn in absolute terror. So please welcome the Rubberhead himself, here to tell stories of sex, drugs, and special effects as we bring you the Chronicles of Steve Johnson.
Oh, well, that was a nice intro. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Beautiful. I mean, before we get started, obviously, we've been having a bit of a chat before, so we started recording, and you've just obviously lost the entirety of a joint and now managed to light another one. How's your morning been so far?
Let's think. I didn't sleep really well last night, but it's been good. I've been on a roll for like the past 2 weeks. I've been kind of like you ever see those like, I don't know what they're, I don't know what you would really call it. They're not, maybe it's kind of a festival. They do them in Mexico and Central America, maybe South America too, where people wander to whatever religious place they're going to and they beat the crap out of themselves with barbed whips. Have you seen this shit?
Yes.
Yeah, where they hurt themselves. It's called flagellation, I think.
Yes.
That's what I've been doing to myself for the past 2 weeks. I've been on a religious journey. Beat it. You want to see my back? No, I'm kidding. What I mean is, I'm using that as a something to compare to the fact that I really screwed up something really bad about 2 weeks ago, and I've been trying to make up for it by working basically around the clock. I've been incredibly busy, and it feels really good. It's nice. But I'll never make up for my fuck up, but I'm trying.
We all make mistakes, Steve. We're all human.
Yeah, but that's kind of how I operate. You know, if something goes wrong, I do everything I can to not only fix it but make it even better. You know, it's kind of what I used to do in the film industry as well.
So how we like to start these things, we take it right back to the days of young Master Johnson, you could say. What did you want to be when you were growing up? Has it always been art and film for you, or was it something completely different in those early days?
In the really early days, of course, I wanted to be an astronaut, actually, which is a typical, God, can you hear that cat? He's bouncing around like a pinball. You know, it's a typical young, stupid, naive kid thing. It's like saying I want to be a fireman or a doctor or something. But that didn't go too far. And, you know, Jesus Christ, let's think. I wanted to get into the film industry, specifically doing what I do. Basically, since I came out of the womb, since I even knew this stuff existed. When I was really young, I started watching the Hammer horror films and the Universal classics. And that was it, you know. And I guess I had to be, you know, my parents were really cool and really groovy in the 60s and 70s, and they took me to see a lot of movies that really influenced me, like Planet of the Apes, of course, when it came out. And also, God, it's really distracting. Half of your body keeps disappearing. It's exciting. In Planet of the Apes, Little Big Man, the Dick Smith makeup on Dustin Hoffman was something that really blew me away. The old age makeup that Dick Smith had done. You know, this was in the early 70s, and I'd never seen anything like it. And I thought, okay, that's like a combination, the greatest combination ever of science and art, these zero tolerances to turn one person into another. That's what I was really impressed about the Dustin Hoffman makeup in Little Big Man that Dick Smith did. He turned him into a 121-year-old man, I think, when Dustin was still like in his early 20s. But, you know, that impressed me far more than Planet of the Apes. A lot of guys in my position, they saw Planet of the Apes, it came out about the same time Little Big Man did. And they're like, oh, I want to do that. To me, and no offense to John Chambers and the Bermans and all the people that did that original film, but they just look like a mobile mask stuck on people's faces. They're like, because I loathe bananas. It's just like, the fuck is that? The edges were amazing. I think people were amazed that the edges were invisible. You couldn't see. Really, it was only just around the eyes because there were no other edges. Were covered with hair. So yeah, and then I there was a magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland that I used to get religiously since I was a very small kid. And then that certainly showed a lot of behind the scenes that was not available at that time because you got to remember this is the late 60s, early 70s. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have a lot of the stuff. You'd have to go to the library. I'd have my mom drive me to the Galveston County Library and go through these dusty books and try to find anything that I could. And I remember finding one book on stage makeup. It wasn't the Richard Corbin book. That one was like getting a brain transplant when I got the Richard Corbin book. I stayed up all night, literally till the sun came up, read it cover to cover. But this was a really obscure book that I found in the late 60s. I mean, I had to be 9 years old in the Galveston Library, and it was for stage makeup. And they had a lot of examples, step-by-step examples. And I remember talking to Dick Smith about this. No one has ever heard of this book. Maybe I hallucinated it, but it was really cool because what this artist did is he showed examples from Shakespeare plays.
Oh, wow.
And like for Falstaff, he made a big fat guy. And what he did is he took silk and glued it onto the person's face and stuffed it with cotton. But he did it in small areas and tailored it in a way that it actually looked really, really good. But it wasn't just the technique, because it was obviously done a long time ago and it was done for stage. It was the theory behind it, because he did a Don Quixote where he made the chin really long and the forehead high. And he was talking about the theory of how, what that means, to lengthen a face this way or to broaden a face this way, what that elicits from the audience. And it was a really, really interesting book. How did we get off on that? I don't know. I forgot.
So if my research is right, though, you started this journey at a very early age, like you said. Did I read you gave your portfolio to Rick Baker when you were a teenager?
Yes. This is one of those stories I've told 1,000 times, but maybe 1,001 is the charm. Yeah, when I was 16, 1976, I was really, really, really sick one day, and I was actually a really good student, and I never missed school because I didn't want to get behind and have to, work harder to catch back up. So I never missed school, but I was really, really sick one day, and so stayed home in bed. My mother was in the living room sorting piles of laundry, and this asinine local game show was on called Dialing for Dollars. It was I grew up on the Gulf Coast of Texas, so this was a Houston game show. And my mom just went nuts, and she goes, "Steven, you have to come out here. You gotta come out here." I'm like, "Mom, I'm sick. Have you not noticed?" She goes, "You don't want to miss this." I crawled out into the living room, looked at the television, and none other than Rick Baker was on the television. And he was my hero at this point. I'd, read about him in Starlog magazine. He had helped Dick Smith on The Exorcist. He had done, at this point, the Cantina sequence, all the aliens for Star Wars. He had done the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong. Of course, a perennial favorite, The Incredible Melting Man, which I saw in the theater 3 times. It's a good one. So, Rick Baker wasn't even really Rick Baker at that point, but to me, he was a god. And so I'm like, oh my God. And the whole reason he was there is he was promoting the fact that he was going to be speaking at one of the world's first science fiction conventions, because remember, it might have been 1975, actually. And there was a science fiction convention being held in Houston. And so I begged my mother to drive me down there. And I did have a portfolio. I had been working on things at that point based on the Dick Smith Monster Makeup Handbook, which is also another thing that I learned a lot from. It was a little magazine. I think Warren Publishing, the same people that did Famous Monsters and Eerie and Creepy and all those things, did this booklet magazine, whatever. It was basically very simple techniques that kids could do. And so I had been using that to, base my own makeups on it. And so I had a little thin portfolio with, colonial Southern vampires, bomb blast victims, corpses. Jesus, The Island of Dr. Moreau had come out, so I did a Tiger Man. I had old age makeups. I had an Albert Einstein makeup. I had an ancient Asian prophet. But you have to remember, all of these makeups, particularly the old age makeups, were done on my friends. They're like 12 years old. So how do you turn a 12-year-old into an ancient Asian prophet? So they really weren't all that good. But, it showed that I was trying. And so, yes, my mother dropped me off at the convention. And after Rick spoke, I went up to him and I was very, very nervous and I wanted to show him my work. And so I was kind of shaking. I said, "Look, Rick, it's not very good. Can you please take a look at it?" And he was very, very nice. But he didn't say a word. His face was just immobile, completely stone cold. And he turned each page slowly. And he finally got to the end of the very small thin portfolio. And he said, "Well, you're right. You're not very good." Oh, God, my hero is telling me I'm not very good. And he goes, "Yet." And I'm like, "What do you mean, yet?" And he said, "Well, here you are, as far as you could possibly be from New York and Los Angeles, where these techniques are actually in practice. You're in the middle of the country, so you've got to figure this stuff out yourself." And what that tells me is that you've got a very bright problem-solving mentality. And that's what this industry truly is all about, because you can develop talent. You can develop painting techniques, sculpture techniques. You can learn mold-making techniques. But he said you kind of have to be born with the problem-solving mentality, because he goes, if somebody comes to me and says, "We have a vampire deterioration in this movie when the sunlight hits him," I'll figure out how to do that, and I'll do the greatest vampire deterioration scene ever. And then a year later, different movie, somebody comes back to me and they say, "Look, we have this vampire deterioration sequence." I'm not going to do it the same way because that doesn't challenge me and that doesn't show the audience anything new. It's always about problem solving. And so he said, he gave me his phone number and he said, "Hey, listen, kid, if you ever make it out to Hollywood, give me a call." And so I did. And I was, of course, this was 1978. As soon as I got out of high school, I got in my car and drove out here with nothing and not really knowing anyone other than vaguely Rick Baker. And I wasn't good enough to work for Rick immediately. I was just 18 and I hadn't really used any professional techniques at that point. So what he did is he introduced me to Rob Bottin, who famously did John Carpenter's The Thing, the original one, and a bunch of other amazing stuff. Total Recall, I won an Oscar for. So I worked with Rob Bottin for a while and learned the techniques. And then Rick also introduced me to Greg Canham, who unfortunately recently passed away. But Greg has I guess he got 4 or 5, 6 Oscars for Best Makeup. So I worked with Greg for a while too. So once I had worked with Greg and Rob and learned the ropes professionally, Rick called me over to work on American Werewolf in London. And that was the first movie I did with Rick. And that is the story of me giving my portfolio to Rick. How'd I do?
It was beautiful. It is a great story. I know you told it 100 more times, but it's a great story. Like, anyone else, they might have heard that feedback and gone, "Do you know what? Fuck it. Clearly, I'm not going to do this." But you stuck to it. And, you put yourself out there and you phoned him. And that's amazing.
Well, I mean, I just felt like there was nothing else to do. I mean, people often ask me, "My God, it seems like you knew what you wanted to do since the time you came out of the womb and you went for it and you never had a problem and you just eased your way into the business." But how does that work? How did you do that? And what I tell people is to do exactly the same thing I did, which is to find someone who excels and is really, really good at exactly the same thing that you want to do and study them and do what they did. And that's exactly what I did.
It's amazing.
What did your parents do?
What did they do?
Yeah.
My parents were really supportive, always incredibly supportive. Because, when you're trying to do this stuff in a suburban household, it's, I was baking foam rubber components in our oven, the same oven that my mother cooked our dinner in. And, doing mad scientist experiments on the kitchen table and ruining the finish on all the furniture. Yeah, they had to be supportive or they would have kicked me out. But, I think one of the first times I was a big fan of the Lord of the Rings books and I'd read them and I wanted to do a Gollum makeup. And this, of course, was before the Peter Jackson stuff, before there was any movie versions of this. And so I kind of imagined what a Gollum makeup would look like, what Gollum would look like from having read the book. And then on my best friend that I used to do all my experiments on, I literally did a multi-piece foam rubber makeup. And I was having nothing but problems baking it in our food oven. The foam kept collapsing, or it wouldn't gel. And again, this is exactly what Rick Baker said. It's like I couldn't call anybody. I couldn't say, why is my foam not working? Because foam rubber, which is what we used to use, now we use silicone mostly, is a four-component process. And so it's kind of scientific to get it to work. But so I just had to, by trial and error, keep figuring it out, figuring it out, figuring it out. And one day, the afternoon that it worked, I'm opening up one of my Gollum pieces, and I just started, and it worked. The foam worked, and I had a piece there that looked to me as good as one of Dick Smith's pieces from Little Big Man. It was an actual multi-piece foam rubber appliance. When it finally worked, I was just like, I was breathing heavily, and I was actually shaking. My mother was sitting at the table with me, and she kind of smiled when she was watching me, and she said, it's just a matter of time, meaning it just a matter of time before I became successful at this, because you could see how passionate I was about it and how hard I had worked to get that foam rubber to work.
I love that. That's amazing. And obviously, you worked with Rick on American Werewolf in London, and you've worked on over 100 projects since then. So, what did you do in those, especially those early days, to get your name out there?
More than 200, I think, way more than 200 actually. I mean, if you count all of the music videos and particularly all the television episodic stuff I did, for instance, Outer Limits alone that I shot and I did 4 years of that. And that was back when I think we had 18 episodes per season. So what's 18 times 4? That's like 60 episodes.
Yeah.
72.
Yeah, so there were almost up to 100 just on that one fucking show.
Yeah,
that's mad.
And we did some amazing stuff on that show, actually. I'm sorry, what was your question?
I was just saying, what did you do to get your name out there, to get yourself in the position to work on all these different projects, especially in the early days?
I just had an incredible passion for it. I mean, when I was a kid, I would race home from school instead of playing sports. I would race home to work on my makeups. And I just, always wanted to be the best. And I always wanted to do not only be the best, but do as much work as possible. And so I tried to learn to work quickly, which I think is also something that's really important. I think you get better when you're fast because you don't fall in love with something and it's easier to make changes on it. But, you also have to remember that when I got into the business, a lot of people call it luck. I don't necessarily believe in luck, but the timing was really good because when I came out, it was 1978. And that was right before this huge explosion of makeup effects started, which really started with The Howling and American Werewolf in London. Because what happened then is when those movies came out in the same year, suddenly writers and directors and producers could write anything they wanted, direct anything they wanted, produce anything they wanted. It really, really, really just opened the floodgates. And if you recall, that's when the big makeup effects boom started. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, every movie had to have makeup effects in it. I mean, makeup effects were the star for a while, and we were rock stars. So yeah, I just always wanted to be on the cutting edge, and I always wanted to have a lot of fun. My studio was quite well known for being a lighthearted, fun place to work, and I also got huge budgets and nice amounts of time. I learned that from Rick and Rob and Greg. Because at that time, when the business was trying to create itself in the early 80s, nobody really knew what they were doing. But we did know one thing. If you had a lot of money and you had a lot of time, you would end up doing much, much better work. So there was an echelon. There were the Rick Bakers and the Rob Botines. I'd like to think that I was one of those in that mindset, particularly when I started on my own when I went to Boss Film and did Ghostbusters and Fright Night and all those movies. So there were the expensive people, and but there weren't even that many people. That's the point I'm trying to make. Now, there's studios all over the world, really, really, really talented, very wonderful studios that do incredible work. But back then, you had Tom Berman, you had Rick Baker, and you had Stan Winston. That was it. You had Dick Smith on the East Coast. And maybe you had Chris Tucker in England, but that was it. You had nobody in Australia. Right now, we got Odd Studio. They do amazing work in Australia. I mean, every DDT in Spain, every country has at least one fantastic company. Um, okay, so I'm losing my train of thought. So yeah, so you had the really expensive people, and then as the industry started growing, you started getting peripheral people, and at some point around 83, I guess it was, everybody and their dog in the San Fernando Valley had a makeup effects studio.
Yeah.
And so then at that point, there was a hierarchy.
Mm.
You had your Rick Bakers, and then you had your John Beeklers. And John Beekler's famous for doing very, very low budget stuff very quickly and inexpensively and looks ridiculous, although it does have an 80s charm to it. He did the Ghoulies movies, Ghoulies Go to College, all those ridiculous things. He was just known for doing very, very low budget stuff. But the people that did that stuff had a blast doing it. But it was almost like a different world than
Mm.
what was going on the American Werewolf side, where we were literally changing film history.
Amazing. So I do want to learn a bit more about the process. So, like, when you get signed onto a project, how does this typically start? Are you given a brief, like a rough drawing? Like, how does it generally start for you?
Um, well, my favorite part of the entire process is the conceptualization and the design process.
Yeah.
So for me, it always starts with the script, obviously. I have a terrible tendency to not listen to directors and to not do what directors want because most of the time, not all the time, feel that I'm better at what I do than they could possibly be at directing me because, you think about a director, unless we're talking about a career director like Steven Spielberg, most directors have done no movies, but then if they have, they've done one or two. So they haven't spent a whole lot of time on set. And they haven't spent a lot of time working with giant crews. That's what I do. And I live, breathe, eat, and sleep and dream about this very specific part of the business. And they don't. So, I'd like to double down on this and say that I am better than them. And so fuck them. You know? Because I would like to give you a really good example, and I've been designing for a film recently that probably won't happen, but it's a movie with a whole shit ton of ghosts, and I wanted to do something really, really, really different. And so I thought, well, wow, wouldn't it be cool if their eyes were ever so slightly bigger, just unnervingly big eyes? And then you go, well, then how do you do that? If you're going to do it practically, you'd have to sculpt big eyes. And then what are you going to do? Mechanize a blink, mechanize well, you can't do that. It would look ridiculous. And it would have to be too thick in order to have the mechanism. Now, I did do that for a test for when Schwarzenegger was going to play the Will Smith part in I Am Legend. I did do a mechanical eye thing and it turned out really, really well, but it's not practical. It's practical effect that's not practical. I mean, it's really not. It would be expensive. So I thought, well, okay, wait a minute. AI. So what I did is I did a test makeup where I sculpted ever so slightly larger eyes. And then I applied the makeup. And see, here's the cool thing about it, because now I don't want to get into too much detail in case the director actually watches this. So, no. So, okay. So, what I did, let me just cut to the chase here. What I did is I applied a makeup with big eyes, and then I animated the eyes with AI. And oh my God, it's so incredibly effective. I mean, it almost looks like the world's greatest Quasimodo, very subtle Quasimodo makeup. It's so cool because inherently when you see something like that, number one, the eyes are bigger than they could possibly be. So that's creepy as fuck. And number two, they're not so big that you could fit a mechanism. And even if you could fit a mechanism, the way AI tracks, I mean, I really know I've made a million mechanical eyes in my career. These were the most realistic ever because the AI knows that when you move your eyes, there's always a blink. Coordinating that with a mechanism is almost impossible. And the way the flesh tracks when the eyes go down and up, it was just absolutely beautiful. So getting back to the point, the whole concept is let's make these ghosts with big eyes. That'll make them really interesting and really cool. And so I do this makeup. I animate it with AI, which is cutting edge shit, blending practical with AI. I show it to the director, and here's what he said: the eyes are too big.
But that's
Can
the
you fucking believe it? That's like a movie that is absolutely has to happen in the winter in the snow. And the producer says, I love it, but can we make it happen in the summer? You know? So yeah, so this is the kind of thing you deal with. And so well, how did I get off on that? Saying that I don't listen to directors, and that's a perfect reason why. But you've got to I say this being a cocky motherfucker, but the fact is the director is always right, kids. The director is always right. Even if he's wrong, he's right because it's his fucking movie. But I've always had a problem with that because I figure it's maybe his movie, but it's my monsters. God damn it.
How does that translate to being on set then? Because obviously you're working with these effects and stuff on set. Are you butting heads with the director there as well, or was it quite smooth sailing once you got past the design stage?
Well, I mean, it depends. You'd have to ask about specific directors. Um, I, there's you need to be friendly to everybody on set, but the DP is a good guy to be friends with because then you can make suggestions without stepping on his toes or offending him. The director, obviously, you need to be friends with, and the AD as well. But then you could add the producers. Um, I don't know. It depends. I get along with some and I don't get along with others.
Fair.
is with your creations and with everything
It
that
depends on if they're a jerk. I'll give you an example right now. Guillermo del Toro, everybody thinks he's the new Tim Burton and he's Hollywood's darling. I did Blade 2 with him and had a horrible experience. Absolutely horrible. And one of my better friends, Mike Hill, just got an Oscar for doing Frankenstein, and he also did the Shape of Water thing under the banner of Legacy for Guillermo. But Guillermo is a tough nut. He really is. Um, and I did not get along with him at all on set or in person or at all, ever.
Ever.
And that seems very unfair and not cool because he's a really a spearhead for maintaining practical effects in the film industry. And the work we did on Blade 2, I'm really, really happy. And that's just like working with James Cameron. I can't take credit for the aliens in the abyss because that was so Jim Cameron's hand guiding me. Same thing with Guillermo on Blade 2. So, although I did not get along with either James or Guillermo, it's what it is. It's strong personalities. I've got a real strong personality. Guillermo does. Jim does. Most people in the film industry, if they're going to be a director, have very, very strong
Mm.
personalities. You can't very well be a weak person that's not a good communicator and be a successful director. Um, I just think it's just a power struggle with me. I always just think I'm too good for this. It's true. How dare you tell me how to make my monsters? It's one of those things. It really is, which is just the most fucking cocky, asinine bullshit. I mean, it's like I've tried to be nice. I've tried to be subservient, and the way I looked at it is like, okay, I'm remodeling my house, and I've got all these trades coming over. I got a plumber coming over. I got a roofer coming over, an electrician. And I kind of think, okay, I'm the director in this case, and these guys are me. And so I'm thinking, if my plumber came up to me and gave me hell, and because I told him I wanted to increase the size of the pipe coming in from the main so I could have more water pressure, I'd fire him. But that's what I do. Or even worse, if my plumber drove up in a brand new Mercedes S500, I'd really think he was making too much money, and I'd fire him too, which is what I used to drive.
when you're making and creating your monsters, is there like a Steve Johnson style? Is there something you always put on them where people go, fucking hell, Steve Johnson did that?
People tell me that is the case, specifically because of, I think, what I did at Boss Film in the 80s. I did all the greatest hits of the 80s there. I did Ghostbusters was the first one. I did the Ghost for Ghostbusters, and then we did Fright Night, Poltergeist 2, Big Trouble in Little China. We got fired from Predator. That was quite a thing. But you know what? Here, let me pimp something. Take a look at this. Ugh, it won't reach. Oh, yeah. Look, since I made Slimer for the original Ghostbusters, look, this is
That's amazing.
Holy shit, that's cool.
I sculpted this. This one is 3D printed, but let me pimp it for a minute. And it's really cool. It's very comforting. It's nice to have on your desk. Um, you can buy these. They're 200 bucks. And all you got to do is go on a website called Bueno. Bueno, like Bueno, Bueno. Bueno, like good in Spanish.
Yeah.
Bueno Productions. It's very simple. Bueno Productions, good productions. Um, it's a woman and her brother who wrote a book and did a documentary called Cleaning Up the Town.
Hmm,
Um,
I've heard
it's
of it.
about Ghostbusters, behind the scenes on the original Ghostbusters. And so that's the site you can buy this at, 200 bucks. But what's really cool, and I don't have one here, God damn it, because they're all sold out at the moment. I've got more coming this week. Um, we got a librarian too that's about this size, but its arms are really long, and it's really cool. And it's kind of a translucent pinkish, but you can see it. There are photographs of it on Bueno Productions, Bueno, Bueno Productions. Take a look, buy a Slimer, buy a librarian, and they come. Even though it's a British website, they're shipped from here, so I'll sign them. So
Oh,
there, pimp,
amazing.
I've pimped my ride. What was the question?
I just said it. There's like when you're creating your monsters and when with your effects and everything. Like,
Oh,
is
do I
there
have a
like that?
style? Right.
Yeah, that
Well,
sort of.
again, if you take a look at Ghostbusters, if you take a look at Big Trouble in Little China, if you take a look at even Fright Night, I think my style really came through once I was let loose because Rick Baker, actually, I did several films with Rick. It starting with American Werewolf. We then did Videodrome, the David Cronenberg film, and we did Ghost Story, and we did Greystoke, which we went to England for over a year, and I also went to Africa on that, which would it was Greystoke, the Legend of Tarzan. We had tons of ape suits in it. Um, but see, when I was doing all the things for Rick, Rick's got a very handsome work ethic. His artistic style is perfect. It's handsome. It's too handsome for me. It's too expected. Uh, I know this is sacrilegious because I'm talking about Baker's work, but I feel that he's too safe. And then you've got somebody like Rob Bottin, which I would consider myself closer to in design style, who goes crazy with his designs. Um, what the fuck point was I trying to make? Where was I going with that?
Found your own style when you went on your own.
Oh, yes. So when I was working for Greg Cannon and Rick Baker and Rob Bottin, I was working under them and I was directed by them. So I was not, my style had no chance to come out until Rick referred me after Greystoke. Uh, he referred me to go over and open up the Ghost Shop uh, for Richard Edlund's Boss Film Corporation. It was the first film that Richard Edlund did down there in Marina Del Rey. He opened up a huge studio. And so all of the movies that I did there in the years that I spent at Boss Film, had his own building. I had my own building. So he didn't micromanage at all. So my style blossomed there. And if you take a look at all of that stuff, it's cartoony and it's very 80s charming, meaning it's leaning on um, not being real. You know, we
Hmm.
weren't trying to make the stuff look perfectly real. Now, if we had to do a fake head, we would. But when we had the opportunity to design our own characters, we went nuts, and they do look very cartoony. And so people quite often say that that's my style, and which I'm kind of happy about. I like it. You know, you take a
Amazing.
look at Big Daddy Roth, that hot rod guy from the 60s. I did a Japanese theme park and I did some honest to God Big Daddy Roth characters, which were really fun. But then I did a movie called Freaked that Alex Winter stars in and directs. So did you see that movie?
I've heard of
I've
it, but I've never
not.
seen it.
I've never
Freaked?
seen it.
Oh, it's filled with effects. It's filled with characters. Um, and that is and Alex himself, Alex Winter, who's the blonde vampire in Lost Boys,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
short one. Alex stars in this, and he directed it. And he's wearing this crazy Big Daddy Roth makeup that's half of his face. So he's Alex on this side, and this giant. It's really, really a cool thing. I had a
That's
lot of
awesome.
fun with that. And we also did some giant full body suits, and they're very Big Daddy Roth inspired. Their eyes are popped out, but they're on tentacle mechanisms. So you got to see it. It's a good movie. It's
Absolutely.
really crazy. It's really nuts.
So obviously, with your career, if we were going to sit and go through, we'll be here for hours on hours. So I've literally just picked a few out just to pick your brains about and learn a bit more about.
Okay.
You might think I'm going to start with like Ghostbusters or American Werewolf, but no, you worked on one of my favorite films as a kid. You worked on Suburban Commando, Hulk Hogan, Christopher Lloyd, Aliens.
Nobody
What,
ever brings that up.
what's not to love about those three things? What did you do on Suburban Commando?
Well, we made the Suburban Commando. I guess that the title is referring to Hulk Hogan. We did a bunch of stuff. We did the giant alien, that big
Amazing.
green looking thing. We completely over designed it. It's there's not you could go over it with a microscope and not find an edge. Meaning we put the bodysuit on, then when we put the hands on, they're actual appliance edges, invisible edges that we blended off both hands, feet, zipper, head. So it took 12 hours to get him into this monster suit for no good goddamn reason whatsoever, other than just say, look, we can do this. We could have designed it so it would take 20 minutes to get him in it. It would have been easy to just kind of hide those seams the way people typically do, but I don't know why I did that. Just to waste a lot of money and time, I guess. So we made the monster, and then we also made the weird accoutrement that Hulk himself wears. There's like weird gun belt stuff. And then yeah, I'll never forget the producer was such an idiot on this movie. We did a design for the creature, and the creature was in a very dynamic, threatening pose, two-dimensional design that was used to get approval from the producer and director. So the producer comes over to take a look while we're sculpting it. And when you sculpt these things, you've got a mannequin made of the actor. We've done a
Mm.
life cast of the actors. You've got a perfect copy but it's in a neutral pose. The arms are out like this, it's standing straight up. And that's what you use to sculpt on. So we're sculpting it on this neutral mannequin of the actor. And the producer comes over to take a look at it. And he's like, is it going to be this color? And he's just looking at this mud colored clay. And it's like, no, no, of course not. We've got the design over here. It's going to look like that. He goes, hmm. How are you going to move it around? Because it was on a wheeled base. So we could, move this big, heavy sculpture. He goes, you're just going to have, push it. I'm like, what are you talking about? See, he thought that was it. And he goes, and I don't like the pose it's in. It looks scary in the other one. It looks scary. You had the arms out. And I
Fuck's
finally
sake.
realized that the guy thought that was what we were going to use to film. Ugh. And then the idiot came back, and he had never once mentioned anything about a Western holster for Hulk's costume.
Mm.
And he got so angry, he turned and stormed out of the studio. He goes, for weeks, I've been demanding a Western holster. Goddamn son of a bitch. Never, not once did he mention a Western holster. And it's not like we couldn't have still done one. The guy was a fucking moron. Remember what I said about people without experience telling us what to do?
Oh, fucking!
You're
I
going
can't
to move it
believe
around. You're going to just push it. What color is it? Why is it this color?
didn't give Shep Ramsey a holster. How dare you? Again, I'm going to be selfish and ask about a film that I love, even though it's so bad it's great. Anaconda, LL Cool J plus a giant snake. Look, did you build the actual snake?
No, I didn't. The full size anaconda. No, we did actually probably as much. Walt Conti did that. Walt Conti has probably, I don't know if he's still in business, but had or still has the most specific company in the world, and that is he makes giant, unbelievably cool, amazing, state of the art aquatic creatures, and that's it.
Okay.
That's it. Like he made Free Willy, he made the fucking whale. He makes dolphins that can swim, but they're remote control. I mean, they can literally swim underwater, neutrally buoyant. Oh yeah, he's amazing. Anytime you ever see a movie with an aquatic animatronic, that's Walt Conti's work, a company called Edge Innovations. So he built that snake. Now I wanted to, and it was a mistake. It was an absolute mistake. Everybody agreed. I told him, I go, guys, because I bid it. I bid the giant snake. You have to remember, there's tons of other effects. Eric Stoltz gets the tracheotomy. There's a
Mm.
little mechanical bug. My God, I could go on and on and on. There's just a whole bunch of little snakes. There's that giant snake skin, mechanical snakes constantly, rod puppet snakes. We did track snakes. We did full on mechanical tentacle mechanism snakes. Uh, we did dummies of almost all of the actors. I can't remember what we did, but we did a whole lot of work on it. So they split it. They said, listen, Walt's going to make the giant one, you make the other ones, which I was really disappointed because I figured out ways to do all of this stuff with very direct, very simple puppetry. And ultimately, the problem with Walt's snake, even though it's an absolute modern day marvel, it's in a museum right now, actually. Um, you don't see it in the movie. You don't see what it could do because the producers and the director got very frustrated with it because it was all computer operated. So it would have to be at that point the way Walt designed the puppeteering of it. It would take hours to program a move, and you had to know exactly where it was going, where it was stopping, where it was doing this, where it was doing that, program it all in, and then it would do it repeatably and amazingly. But if you wanted to direct it and have something slightly different, that's tomorrow, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it didn't work out real well. So what happened is they, of course, just the same old story. They ended up using a lot of digital snakes that don't match. And at that time, the state of the art wasn't so great. So you end up with, a shitty looking snake. Although it's a really fun movie. Have you seen the sequel?
Not yet. I do really want to.
It's, they're trying to be Tropic Thunder, which you can't not see it, but it's not.
So,
The greatest comedies that I've seen recently is Balls Up. Have you seen that?
no, I haven't.
I've never heard of
I was
that.
going to say, I've not even heard of that.
Maybe it's not out in England yet. It's on Netflix here. It is hysterical. Mark Wahlberg's in it. Oh my God, it's so funny. It's really, really good.
I have to have a look at
But yeah, also when John Voight gets swallowed by the snake, uh,
it. Mm,
we go inside the snake, and we made that whole
yes.
thing.
Oh, that's awesome. You mentioned computer effects of that film. One thing that always makes me laugh that film, the waterfall. It goes up. Always makes me laugh.
It goes up.
The falling from the waterfall, the water goes up. It doesn't go down.
Oh God, I don't remember that.
I remember seeing it on one of those movie trivia things before. And it was like mistakes in films, and it was that, and it's always made me laugh every time I see it.
Well, it was a really fun movie to work on because we really did shoot it in the middle of fucking nowhere outside of Manaus on the actual Amazon. And I've done a lot of water work. I did Sphere. There's a lot of underwater stuff in that, obviously the Abyss. But when you're on location, you're shooting on the Amazon. It's a whole different animal, and you've got J Lo and Ice Cube and Eric Stoltz, and my God, the team, the actors alone on that, and John Voight.
Mm,
Uh, it was quite the experience working on that film.
I can
I have very, very good memories.
Um, we've got to talk about Ghostbusters. Let's be honest, we can't really get away with not talking about Ghostbusters. I thought
Step right up by your glowing
there he
silver.
is. There he is.
Bueno Productions, Bueno, and you can get a librarian too. Soon we'll have a cab driver.
So I've always heard rumors that Slimer was designed after John Belushi. Is it actually correct?
Yes.
Why? It's a very random.
Well, because originally Peter Venkman was going to be played by John Belushi. Then
Right.
John Belushi
He passed
died
away,
at
didn't
the
he?
chateau. And so this was kind of like a, Dan Aykroyd designed it to be a slovenly character like John's character in um, Animal House, the Bluto character.
Right.
So it was kind of homage. It was like a way to get so that John could still be in the, and it's a ghost, and John was dead, so it was kind of like a way to get John still in the movie, a kind of inside joke.
How did that work in your design then?
It didn't. You buy a copy of Rubberhead, Volume One. It's
Ooh.
the whole story's there. Um, I think there's still some available on Amazon. I don't know. I know you can buy secondhand copies on Amazon for outrageous amounts of money. But it doesn't work. It doesn't look anything like John. What we did is it's offensive, but what we did is we studied that character on VHS, on the Bluto character from Animal House, and we tried to get it through in the performance of Slimer.
That makes sense.
It's just one of those silly movie things. What are you going to do?
I read somewhere now. I apologize if this is wrong, but I read somewhere that your first sculpt for Slimer, you were off your tits on cocaine. Is that correct?
All of the sculpts on Slimer, yes. Well, let's go a little bit further. The whole movie was fueled by cocaine. Not just the ghost shop, not just us, but everybody was. Are you kidding me? All those movies, everybody was doing cocaine. The actors, the directors, the producers, everybody was doing. There was something wrong if you weren't doing cocaine.
I read
Wow.
this and I was like,
Back then, it was different. The cocaine in the 80s was very different. It didn't have the stigma that it has now. As a matter of fact, it was quite the opposite. It was like a big deal. I remember going to parties, nobody hit it. It was like, even I used to wear a solid gold razor blade around my own necklace, around my neck. It was like, it was something to flaunt, and if you were to pull out a bag of cocaine publicly these days, you'd be, not thought of the same as we were in the 80s when you're doing it with supermodels.
it's a bit different. But this character, did you expect it to become as iconic as it did? Because let's be honest, you think of Ghostbusters, most people think of Slimer before even the four Ghostbusters. Uh,
Yeah, no, no, not at all. You never know. As a matter of fact, back then, that was you have to remember that was my first movie where I had a huge degree of responsibility and I could let my own style shine through. And I had people working for me rather than me working for other people. Um, so, God damn it, I keep losing my train of thought. What'd you ask? Oh, did I?
I
Yeah. So
just
no, I actually didn't even like the script, is what I was going to get at, because you know the same thing with Big Trouble in Little China. When you read Ghostbusters, when you read Big Trouble in Little China, most of what's going to make that movie work is the actors.
mm,
And so, not knowing how Kurt Russell is going to play that character in Big Trouble, you just read, it's like, oh my God, this is a terrible script. And Ghostbusters was kind of the same thing without realizing what Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd are going to bring to those roles. It falls flat. And also, you got to remember, there's a lot of ad lib happening on a movie like Ghostbusters. So
mm.
when I read the script, I thought, well, this isn't going to get me anywhere. It's going to be a disaster.
If only you knew. What? Slime obviously reappeared in the latest Ghostbusters film as well.
Yeah, it looks good too. They made him smaller for some reason. I don't know why he's smaller, but it's weird because it looks much more solid. I like it. I think it's very um it it looks like the original.
Mm.
So I thought that was cool. So the librarian's in that movie too, right? She looks like the original as
Yeah,
well.
she is. I forgot about that for a minute there. I was going to mention the librarian. Like, that is one of the most horrifying, terrifying things I've ever seen in my life. This is a family film. Why did you have to make that so damn fucking scary?
You know what's really funny about that? People tell me that just completely fucked up their childhood. It was the most horrifying thing ever. I never thought about that as being scary. I've only ever seen it as a technical challenge. It just
Very
never
much look at it.
dawned on me that it would scare kids or you scare anybody. But I think why it's scary is you're not expecting it. It's the first scare in the movie, so you're certainly not expecting it. You think
Mm.
you're seeing a comedy, and it's just an utter shock. It's like a jump scare. It's like a
It's,
cat jumping on a garbage can and a loud music sting.
but as I said, you've worked on these family films. You've worked on like horror films, like The Abyss, American Werewolf, Species, tons more. And you touched on The Abyss earlier. I did want to mention it because you created like this mind blowing alien effect with The Abyss, like almost liquid. Like, what was the experience like for you working on that? Because that must have been one hell of a challenge.
It was the most difficult job I've ever done. It was the only job that ever made me contemplate suicide
Oh, fucking
because
hell.
well, you have to remember the water-faced worm thing. Nobody knew
Yeah.
if that was possible at the point that we did that. So that was off the table. But in regard to creating these aliens, or as Jim liked to call them, NTIs, non-terrestrial intelligences, we had to be down in San Pedro in this 20 million gallon tank. We had to be down there on a certain date with 12 aliens. And if we weren't, the movie had no ending and there was no way to fix it. And it was the weight of that responsibility was on my shoulders because there was no way there was no digital fallback, you know. These days there is. Back then there wasn't. So nothing was working because, when I first went in to meet Jim, he made me read the script in his office, which was annoying as hell, and then called me in and he goes, "Here's what I want. I want these things to be the most beautiful ethereal image anyone has ever seen. I want them to light up, self illuminate, and change colors like a goddamn Las Vegas hotel sign. And I want them to be glass clear. And I want to actually shoot them underwater. Are you in?" And I'm like, "Let's go." Having no idea if it's possible or not. But I learned from working with Rick Baker that anything and everything's possible. And so that's because how can you say yes to that? You can't say yes to that unless you're kind of a thrill seeking maniac, which is kind of what you have to be in this industry. Yeah, you can't, you really, your dick's on the chopping block big time, particularly on a project like this. So, if it would glow, it wouldn't change color. If it would change color, it wouldn't work underwater. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrifying. And we didn't have a design, so all we could do is test, test, test for months. I ran out of money. It was one of only two times I ran out of money on Blade 2 as well. And it's not surprising that I ran out of money on a Guillermo film and a Jim Cameron film. Go figure. The only two ever, right? Do the math. So yeah, so I mean, ultimately, we figured it out. I mean, we had to, we absolutely had to, and I just kept wondering though, after that first meeting with Jim, and he told me what he wanted. I kept wondering why Jim hadn't gone to Stan Winston for this because he had already done Terminator and uh, what was the other one he did? And Aliens with Stan Winston. And years later, I found out that James did indeed go to Stan and give him the same spiel. I want to be clear, work underwater, change colors, blah, blah, blah. And Stan hung up on him because it is virtually impossible. But ultimately, um, James came in and came up with some really good ideas. And he actually helped us. He was for once, a director that has enough experience and enough intelligence and enough practicality that he could come in and actually work on our team and help us. And that's, without Jim's involvement, I don't know if we would have been able to pull it off.
How close to the deadline did you get it?
Um, God, I don't know.
Half an hour.
The screechiest, most horrible slam on the brakes deadline ever was on Bicentennial Man with Chris Columbus and Robin Williams. That was horrible because Chris had no faith that the robot suit would ever work right up until a week before we started shooting. It was a horrible experience because he kept threatening to put Robin in a tuxedo and mime makeup. That was his back. That was his fallback if the robot didn't work. And that robot is one of the best robot suits ever fucking put on film, if I don't say so myself. It's an engineering marvel. Adam Savage, from the Mythbuster, thinks it's the most amazing technical achievement ever regarding a wardrobe. And it kind of is. We worked with NASA even on certain parts like the shoulders. The reason it is because I decided myself, nobody came to me and said, we want nothing but hard parts. You can't take the easy way out and put anything soft because if you look at RoboCop, everything that's black, his gloves, his midsection, his neck, that's actually foam rubber. It's just highly polished to look like it's not soft, but it is. C3PO, same thing. robot suits always have soft areas. There's no soft areas. The only soft area on the entire suit on Robin's suit for Bicentennial Man is the palm. It's soft, but we still have hard pieces all over it. But it's still based over a soft foam rubber thing, so it could, because that's a tough one.
Yeah.
But the shoulders were tough, the knees were tough, the elbows were tough, everything was tough, the wrists were tough, but they're all hard pieces. It's all engineered so that we didn't have to fall back on soft foam rubber. So I'm really proud of that. Wow, I'm stuttering all of a sudden. Oh, it's because we're 7 minutes past our hour.
Oh shit!
Damn it.
I mean, I was going to ask about when you were creating for like Species, say, how did you know when the creature was like done and you didn't go, oh, actually, let's just, and then start overdoing it and overthinking the process?
Oh boy, that's a good question, and Species is a good one too because number one, trying to make H.R. Giger happy is like climbing a Mount Everest on acid with two broken legs.
Holy shit!
So that was one thing. Also, she's translucent. She was a full body animatronic, and we had the same issues that we had with Robin's suit because, I mean, take a look at the waist, take a look at the elbows, the shoulders. What do you do? What can you use that will still be translucent, not wrinkle, but yet move? You have the flexibility that we need. And what we ultimately did there is we used women's pantyhose. It was super glued and painted. And then when it's got KY jelly on it, it turns into this incredible, clear, gelatinous, incredibly organic piece. And with enough tension on it, it doesn't wrinkle at all. So that's any place where we have flexible areas on the Sil character was done that way.
Oh,
But
shit.
yeah, I mean, I went on antidepressants on that film. I was ready. I would, the whole crew would leave and I'd walk around going, this is never going to work. And the deadline was coming and coming and coming. I'm, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. And the first day we shot it, it works underwater. Remember the jacuzzi scene? So that thing had to work in water too, which is always difficult.
Mad.
But yeah, I don't remember what the question was, but yeah, I did. I went on antidepressants, and you know what happened as a result of that? I'd never taken. I was on. I think it was Zoloft at the time, and my wife and all of my employees were so fucking happy that I was finally going to be calmer. But what happened and it was specifically because I thought we weren't going to make our deadline, and I couldn't figure out. None of us could figure out how to make this thing work. And so I'm like, I got to do something. I'll take drugs. But what happened is everybody would go home and I would go around to everybody's station at night and, after hours and make notes. And then the next morning I would give my notes to people. But before the antidepressants, I would just get all incredibly angry and incredibly just balled up and just like, why can't anything work? And then once the antidepressants kicked in and started working, I would go around with my notepad after hours. And I'm like, I just didn't care anymore. I'm like, well, we'll make the deadline or we won't. Oh, well, this will either get finished or won't. Oh, this could be better, but who cares? I just didn't care anymore. And so as a result of that, I stopped taking the antidepressants because I thought I'm going to lose my edge. People may be upset with me and I may not be the easiest person to get along with, but it's my edge that keeps the jobs coming in and keeps the quality up.
It's not how I expected that story to end, and I'm not going to lie. It threw me off. But that is a perfect example of why we like to talk to people like yourself, though, because people will watch. I'll just say The Abyss because we were just talking about it. They'll be like, "Oh my god, it's amazing! Jim Cameron did a great job." I'm like, no. Let's look at the people who are just a fucking line in the credits that people don't give enough credit to, that are back there grueling their knackers off, trying to make this work for you to enjoy. And that is a prime example. The fact you stress yourself out so much you needed fucking medication to make it work. But I do want to talk about another film that you worked on, which didn't actually see the light of day. And this whole story of this film fascinates me. And that's Superman Lives. So what was it you worked on? Was it the light up suit, I believe I read?
We did several actually, and if anybody is really interested in this project, you should take a look at a documentary called The Death of Superman Lives, which is
Great
really,
documentary.
really great. And it makes me kind of really, and a lot of people that have seen it goes, why wasn't this movie made? Well, it was a smorgasbord. It was incredible. Tim and I had been circling each other ever since Beetlejuice. We hadn't worked together, but he'd always call me in on stuff. And this one I got Brahm, the artist Brahm, to help design because it was not just the suits. We had two suits we were building, but it was also Brainiac's spaceship was filled. It was going to make the Star Wars cantina sequence look like kindergarten. We designed so many puppets, so many hybrid characters, so much amazing stuff. It was going to be so, so cool, all of those characters. But yes, we've made one silicone suit that was just straight translucent silicone for Nick. And the other one was a restorative suit. Now, when it went out online, everybody thought, what the fuck? Tim Burton's finally lost his mind. They thought that was supposed to be the regular Superman suit. It wasn't. It was this restorative thing where he dies and he puts this thing on and
Hmm.
brings it back to life. So we had had a lot of experience, obviously, on The Abyss with fiber optics. And so we decided to go one step further on this one because with fiber optics, they're only going to be as bright as the light source that's illuminating them. We used xenon, which was as bright as we could get on the Abyss, and we took off all the safety measures, all the filters, but because Jim was yelling at us, and we fried all of our color wheels because it bumped up the intensity of the light. We just have to keep making new color wheels. Um, but this time around, I wanted to go even further. And so we lit the fiber optics with lasers, and that's what people are seeing online, that test stuff. So it was pretty funking intense. And it's really, really cool. I mean, the way it's sequenced, you kind of got to be a mathematician and a scientist to work with fiber optics like that because where each one ends up on the other end, not the business end that the people see the light source, but where that light source and how that light source is sequenced and controlled is what you think of it as a projector, really. You're projecting
Hmm.
what you want, but you've got to know this one goes to that one and this one goes to that one in order for it to work. We did some pretty cool stuff on the Abyss. I think we had a band of shadow constantly passing through the spine of the character. I was at God, what was the optical company? It was not DreamWorks. The optical company, Hoyt Yateman ran it. Dream something. People that did most of the visual effects on the Abyss. But in any case, I was there one day and there was a snail on a glass window, and I was looking at its belly, and the sun was behind it, and I could see this band of shadow passing. And so we did that on the NTIs. But again, in order for that to happen, it's a huge math equation. So we did the same thing on the Nick Cage laser lit suit, but alas, never came out.
I'm a massive Kevin Smith fan, so that story of that film has always fascinated me. And when, like I said, that documentary is incredible to watch as well. But
It is.
how far into the process were you when this all just completely fell apart?
$180,000. I remember that. We spent
Ooh.
$180,000 on it because I don't think that they had paid us like even more than half of that. And so when the film fell apart, they tried to not pay me the rest of it, which I would remember if they didn't. So I guess they did. But I remember it was a battle. That's why I remember the amount because normally I wouldn't remember the amount, which means we never quite finished anything. We did tons of designs for the aliens and robotics on Brainiac ship, and we came very close to finishing both suits, but not film ready. We went up to New York to do a fitting, not of the laser lit suit, but of the silicone one. It did not go well. It didn't go well at all. Ugh. I went to New York to do a fitting on, oh God. But when we were doing Bicentennial Man, if you recall, just like Pinocchio, Robin's character gradually turns into a human.
Hmm.
So coming up with that transition from full-on Robin robot to Robin as Robin was very difficult. And we tried a lot of different things, and one of those things was a metallic makeup with fake eyes. And I'll never forget, we went to New York to test that out too, and it was a complete disaster. I guess I shouldn't go to New York to test things.
Apparently not, no. So you spent a lot of your career working in the golden age of special effects, majority practical effects, etc. Do you feel like a lot of those skills have been lost now with like the rise of CGI and computer effects and all that sort of stuff?
No, I don't. Yet. And the reason I say that is because the Stan Winston School of Character Arts has done an incredible job. Stan's son, Matt Winston, and his partner have done an incredible job of archiving it because they've taken it over the past 10 years or so. Oh, it's been more than 10 years. They may have been around for about 15 years now. Um, they've taken literally every expert in our field and done an hour, 2 hour, sometimes 4 or 6 hour course at what these people do best. So you've got the absolute best mold makers teaching on video how to do molds. You've got the best hair people teaching how to do hair, the best painters teaching how to paint. It's amazing. So it's always going to be there. So people can always learn from that. I did one actually on manipulating plastic with Billy Bryan, garbage bag monsters. So yeah, I mean, it's all there. And the other thing is, for future reference, but the other thing is there's still a ton of this work happening. 20 something years ago when Jurassic Park came out, we all thought the writing was on the wall and it was over, but it's kind of because I kind of unofficially closed my doors in 2006 and went on walkabout. I went to Costa Rica for a year, went all over the place before finding my way back to Los Angeles. But during that period of time, I kind of got out of the business because I thought, well, it's not going to be fun anymore. And one of the things that really ruined it for me is the same thing that's ruining a lot of artists' work these days. AI is ruining a lot of artists' work. And what I'm
Mm.
talking about is I would do the most amazing effect ever, and people would just shrug it off and think it was digital. And that just ruined it for me because for me, the magic was always going into a darkened movie theater to watch a movie that I'd done the effects for and listen to the audience gasp and think, I fucking fooled them. That is the handshake agreement. I fooled these people. I made magic. And once people just started assuming it was digital, it ruined that for me. And now I see artists all over online that are so upset because they've taken a lifetime to learn how to hand paint or hand draw, and now they show their work and people goes, great AI. So it's kind of the same kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not a bullshit. You look at singers now with like their unbelievable voices, like, oh, that's just AI, that is. That's just auto tune, that is. It's
Um,
absolutely insane. But like, what's motivated you to keep going and creating after decades in the industry?
um, well, I don't really. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm kind of semi-retired, but things come along that are interesting. It's the same thing that always motivated me is doing something completely unique and different. That still gets me very, very excited. Having like making these characters with big, oversized eyes.
I,
Big. It's the whole fucking point, and it was done amazingly, technically and artistically perfect, never before seen. The whole point. Eyes are too big.
You're not bitter about that at all, are you?
I hope this guy doesn't watch this.
If he does, be like, no, it's that,
That
other project with the
that
eyes. It's fine.
project is still pending. Not for me anymore.
Obviously, we've only been able to scratch the surface of your career today, and you did hint at it earlier. You do have your memoir out there, Rubberhead, Sex, Drugs, and Special Effects. What
Yes.
led you to writing this?
I have always enjoyed writing, and I wanted to make it. When I sat down, I'm like, if I'm going to do a book, because I've got voluminous archives, and I thought that it would be unfair to not share them. I've got hundreds of thousands of behind the scenes photos, and just tens of thousands of hours of test footage. And people love this stuff. So, but then I thought, well, how the hell do I narrow down my career where I've done all of these projects? And I thought, okay, well, concentrate on the biggest actors in the biggest movies and make it funny. And so I think the book can be. Oh, and the other thing is, I didn't want to have to compete with single books and do something that had already been done or at least felt familiar. So I decided to do a series, and so far there's two volumes out. Volume one and volume two. We're having an issue changing publishers right now, so I don't know if any of the volumes are available on Amazon. They were, but they may be sold out right now.
I know there's a link to them on your website.
Is there?
Yeah, if you go on the shop on your website, they're there.
Are they? Are they still there? I thought they took them off.
Unless you click on it and it says page not found afterwards. I didn't get that far. I just saw they were there. But did
No,
I hear?
I changed publisher. The first publisher is the deal I made with him is he can sell out the rest that he printed, but the new publisher we haven't gone into a second printing yet, so we're in kind of limbo with it.
Because it's going to be 5 volumes in total. Did I read?
Yeah, well, I wrote five. They're all written. I wrote 5 volumes, but a while back decided that 4 volumes would be better. I could cut out some stuff and reduce it to 4. So I'm halfway done with the series now.
There. But did I read you basically just disappeared into the middle of nowhere to go write this? You say it's Costa Rica, I think it was?
Yeah, in Costa Rica, I went there for a year. Went to the jungle for a year. Lived in a treehouse. It was amazing. And monkey. Yeah, it was so cool.
Sounds
Um,
awesome.
yeah, it was. And then I just bounced around. I went to Egypt for a few months. I went to New Orleans. I lived on a stilt house on the bayou, and not in New Orleans, but on the Louisiana coast. I went to Austin for a while. I just went everywhere. So I guess I traveled starting in 2006 for about 3 or 4 years before I made my way back to LA. I thought
Amazing.
I'd never come back to LA. I thought I was going to stay in Costa Rica for the rest of my life, but if you don't speak the language, it gets difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. But obviously, I discovered this after I'd written all my questions, so I'm just going to throw it in here. Did I read you worked with Michael Jackson making disguises for him to be able to go out?
You might have. I did.
That is insane. How did that happen?
I got called to do, it was actually after I left Moss Film, it was the very first job I got a good job call on, and it was to do the effects for a Michael Jackson video, which was called, I think it was called, I don't know what it was. They did go through with the video, and it's the one where he transforms into a giant dancing robot. Is it Smooth Criminal? I don't know what it is. It's not the song Smooth,
Uh,
but in any case,
yeah, I can't think.
so he hired me to do these robotic transformations, and we did some amazing stuff. I did a gravity effect where a sheath of chrome grows over his face. Oh, we did such amazing things. So while I was working with him, we became friendly, and I would actually just go over to his house and brainstorm ideas and shit when he was living in Encino. Um, and so he said, uh, "Let's do some disguises so I can go out." And
Amazing.
yeah, and I thought, well, that's going to be really, really interesting. And I go, yeah, we can do that. It's really cool. I'm thinking, great. We have all the time in the world, all the money in the world. It's Michael Jackson. And I go, when do you want to start? He goes, well, my brother Jermaine's playing at the Universal Amphitheater this weekend. I'm like, it's 3 days from now. And so I bought a pile of cocaine and stayed up for 3 days straight and did a disguise makeup on it. It was really, really interesting. I, riding in the limousine with Michael, sitting next to him. Janet was on one side, Michael was on the other side while we were at the amphitheater watching the show. And then just backstage, O.J. Simpson was there. It was like, oh, it was crazy. It was really, really a fascinating thing. But I guess I got too close to him because he removed me from the project, from the
Oh,
video. The whole reason I did 3 makeups on him, and I went out with him each time. And because I had gone over to his house a few times, and because I was working on this video, and because I was being social with him, but actually go to the uh, recording studio on Hollywood Boulevard while he was recording Bad songs for Bad and rehearsing dancing and stuff. It was like, and ultimately, my take on it is I didn't do anything wrong. We did doing some amazing tests for the robotic transformation, truly amazing. Um, I think what happened is that I got too close to him and stopped treating him like an alien or like royalty, or I just treated him like Michael after a while. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. It's unfortunate.
It is.
But still, I met him and I worked with him and I got to do some pretty cool stuff going out with him in disguises.
Those are some amazing stories, though. So at least you got those. But with a career like yours, do you have a particular project or a day in your career you look back on and you're just like, that's why I do this? That was an incredible day in the office. One of those like, I'm having a bad day. Let's think of something that was just phenomenal.
Uh, Off the top of my head, when we were doing Fright Night, we had three buildings at Boss Film in Marina Del Rey. I had my whole building where we did the makeup effects, and we split that with Mark Stetson, who had the back of the building and did all the miniatures and models. Now, right next door to that was a huge soundstage complex where we filmed everything against blue screen. Uh, we'd build sets there, whatever we needed to do, inverted sets. We built a, that's where the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man went rampaging through New York. It was just in a warehouse and, right next to our model shop. So we set him on fire too, and he climbed that miniature right there in the parking lot. And then on the other side of that was the office building where all the optical effects were done, the water tank stuff and all of that, stop motion animation. And I just remember one day we were doing a deterioration effect for the finale to Fright Night. Jerry Dandridge just transforming into a giant bat character and going crazy with pyrotechnics and melting. And I remember I had to run back to the the creature shop to get something to go back over to the stage. And I just started walking so tall and just inflated with pride and thought, oh my God, I made it. All that time working so hard from being just a little kid growing up in Texas and dreaming about this. Here I am with no one on top of me telling me how to do it or when to do it or what to do. This is me. I'm really doing this. And it was just an amazing feeling. It was total magic.
What? That just says it all, doesn't it? You worked your ass off, you didn't give up, and you made it. What a fucking phenomenal story that is. I can't think of any better way to bring this towards a close, to be honest. It's absolutely beautiful. Mr.
Good.
Stevens.
My cat wants out of the bedroom, so he'll be happy.
Mr. Stevens, do you have any more questions for our wonderful guest?
Yeah, I've got one last one for you, Steve, before we let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. Like, what sort of legacy are you hoping to leave behind? Like, did you ever think that this is where you would get to all them years ago?
Boy, what sort of legacy? Hmm. Boy, that's interesting because I don't know that I have a reputation of being the friendliest person or the easiest to get along with or the most outgoing or open person. I'm kind of known as a prick, I think.
I mean, after an hour and a half, I wouldn't say that, but I haven't worked on a
Well,
film yet, so
an obsessive perfectionist prick. It's not like I'm being a jerk for no reason. I'm being a jerk to make this stuff as good as it can possibly be. I don't know. I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been teaching a lot lately. As a matter of fact, I just taught a prosthetic character class in New York just a few weeks ago. Um, and so, just like the Stan Winston School, what they've done is amazing in making certain all of this stuff is saved, throughout history now. It'll never not be there, at least until the end of the earth. Um, but when I'm teaching, I've done a lot of teaching in Europe as well. I've done many classes in Ireland and in Belgium. And and I also taught 2 semesters at the Tom Savini School over in Pittsburgh, which was absolutely fascinating. And so I guess, as we get older, that's kind of what you got to do. You got to squeeze out that knowledge that you have and let it drip down into these young little birdies' mouths, you know. Whether you like it or not, I never thought I wanted to be a teacher. I never thought, oh boy, I've got to give my knowledge. I've got to impart it for the next generation. Never thought that. But look, it's happening anyway. So Fuck the police. It's like when you get old, you start gardening, You can't help it.
Or playing golf. That's another one, isn't it?
Absolutely incredible. Steve, any plugs, social medias, websites? Where can people find you out in the world?
Well, I'm not very active on Instagram, but I'm Steve fucking Johnson on Instagram.
What a username.
And then I'm actually more active on Facebook, but I get long periods of time where I don't post anything. I haven't really posted since I didn't feel like I had anything to post since I was in New York. I posted a bunch of cool stuff from that class I taught. But yeah, you can follow me if you want. I don't put anything up there. But go ahead. People have been following me right and left. I go on Instagram, all these. It's like, what the fuck? Why are people following me? I don't even post anything. I guess you can look at my old stuff. There's a lot of cool old stuff. I guess it's worth it. Steve fucking Johnson.
Incredible. Steve, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us. It really does mean the world. It's great hearing your stories.
Guys, this has been really good. You guys are very slick. You did a pro job here. I'm very impressed.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Very kind of you. Thank you so much.
Now, the only reason I'm not having as much fun as I might normally have is that it's in the middle of the day and I'm not drinking.
Well, we shall not keep you any longer, so you may crack open the bottle. We're sorry to have kept you so long, Steve. We apologise. You should have just got it with you here and now.
Let's get a bottle of straw.
All right, maybe somebody will buy a Slimer. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve, have the most incredible day. We really appreciate your time. I know, obviously, you get quite busy and with shit going on and everything, so no, we do appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much, Steve.
All right, enjoy your night.
You take care, my friend. See you soon.
Take care.
Bye bye. Bye bye.